Arrest warrants have been issued for 2 people wanted in connection to a murder last month. Good evening and thank you for joining us. Thunder Bay Police have announced that they're looking for 2 suspects in a homicide that was committed 3 weeks ago on Tamarack Place.
The victim was a 31-year-old local man. Joel Mendelson joins us in studio with more. Joel?
Haley, up until now, police had released few details about the ongoing investigation into the murder. But today, police announced that arrest warrants have been issued for the 2 young men, and photos have been released of both of them in hopes of receiving tips from the public. 18-year-old Horatio Shawea Hamish of Sudbury and 20-year-old Landon Ashney Peniscom of Greenstone are wanted on warrants for second-degree murder. The alleged homicide took place at a residential address along the 300 block of Tamarack Place on the morning of August 30th. The victim, 31-year-old Ryan Legurieric, was pronounced deceased at the scene. Thunder Bay Police Detective Inspector Jeremy Pearson says they don't believe this was a premeditated killing.
While there was a weapon involved in this incident, it was not a firearm. So this is not a firearms-related homicide. I will also say, just because it is a theme that we are continually addressing in the community, in this instance, this particular homicide, we do not believe at this time was related to the illicit drug trade, and rather was an altercation that stemmed out of an interaction.
According to police, the 2 accused have been in Thunder Bay for some time and have ties to the community. But so far, police have not been able to track them down.
From the initial response of our primary response officers, came into the under the carriage of the major crime unit as well as the forensic identification unit. That investigation has led to reasonable grounds to believe that these are the 2 responsible, and subsequent obtaining of warrants for their arrest.
Anyone with information on the whereabouts of the 2 suspects are asked to call police or Crime Stoppers. However, members of the public should exercise caution and not approach the accused individuals. Joel Mendelson, TBT News.
The Trans-Canada Highway east of Thunder Bay is completely shut down at this hour following a multi-vehicle collision in Shunya. One of the vehicles involved was a transport. The crash happened near the East Loon Lake turnoff just after 1 o'clock this afternoon, and at least one of the vehicles burst into flames. OPP say members of the Thunder Bay, Chappaqua, and Nipigon detachments responded, along with Shunya fire crews and EMS. At this time, Highway 1117 remains closed between Pearl and Highway 527, and there's no word on when it will reopen. The OPP's traffic incident management team and collision reconstructionists have been brought in to investigate the cause of the crash.
A section of Arthur Street was shut down to all traffic this morning and part of this afternoon due to a collision between a teenage motorcyclist and a Thunder Bay police cruiser. The small white motorcycle was still at the scene this morning. The busy route was blocked off between Vickers and Catherine Streets. Police were first alerted just after midnight about an erratic motorcyclist at George Burke Park. The suspect failed to stop for officers, but there was no pursuit. The bike was then spotted weaving through traffic and driving on sidewalks on Arthur Street before colliding with a police cruiser. The suspect fled on foot but was arrested. The 17-year-old is charged with dangerous driving, fleeing police, and impaired driving. They remain in custody.
Thunder Bay's new city manager plans to form a task force focused on growth in the city.
John Collin made his first public address outside of council chambers. He shared his vision for Thunder Bay and answered questions at the Chamber of Commerce luncheon today. Lee Noonan was there.
If Thunder Bay City Manager John Collins' priorities could be summed up in one word, that word would be growth.
I want to talk to you about growth.
Collins told a gathering of the Thunder Bay Chamber of Commerce that the city's tax base has grown only 7.8% in the last decade, while inflation has gone up 32%.
It's not that we haven't grown enough to have extra money. We haven't grown enough to actually keep up.
Collins says he'll be asking for the Chamber of Commerce as well as local BIAs, boards, and academics to join a growth task force.
Because at the end of the day, we all need to be one team working towards one objective: more growth.
Collin took questions on topics including his ideas on supporting entrepreneurial new arrivals, how his proposed growth fund will work, and he fielded a couple questions on international students and building a city where they want to stay.
We have buses that are canceled, they're late 15, 20 minutes, and if you consider the really low degrees in winter here in Thunder Bay, not many people, especially internationals, accustomed to that.
On transit, it's not satisfying the needs of the community, period, full stop. It's not. I'm going to council with a charter to fully transform our transit system. Hopefully I'll get the support of council to do that.
When asked about growth in surrounding communities who use city resources without contributing to the tax base, Collins said it was an issue, but not a big enough one to act on.
Quite frankly, I have bigger fish to fry.
In response to a question on the choice to keep parkettes rather than selling them for development, Collins was equally direct.
I could care less about parkettes. They're not going to solve our problem. We're not going to have the housing we need by addressing it 4 units at a time.
In general, Collins' talk went over well. Chamber of Commerce President Charlotte Robinson said she was thrilled to see the focus on growth and called the discussion refreshingly frank.
You know, from what I saw from the folks in the room, I think everybody seemed to feel like almost inspired to get on the team. So looking forward to working together in the months and years ahead.
Lee Noonan, TBT News.
Thousands of people marched on Queen's Park today demanding justice for Grassy Narrows First Nation and to raise awareness about the ongoing mercury poisoning in that community.
They're calling on the Ontario and federal governments to shut down the Dryden paper mill. CTV's Siobhan Morris has the story.
They came to the streets of downtown Toronto from all over Ontario, demanding justice, the end of the poisoning of a river system that flows into the northern First Nation community of Grassy Narrows.
Clearly still going on, and it needs to be addressed, and the people involved need to be held accountable.
Mercury contamination from a paper mill has made life for generations a struggle, dimmed their opportunities.
I dealt with seizures at age 2, and I dealt with, I have constant headaches.
This is an emotional fight for Leanna Leask.
A better home for my grandchildren, a safer home.
She's dealt with numbness in her hands and feet, cognitive problems because of chemicals in the water.
There's a lot of our elders that are sick. A lot of them have died with mercury poisoning. We have lost our fishing industry, our hunting industry, and we need to be compensated. We need our waters cleaned.
The ongoing pain running through Grassy Narrows has disgusted Jennifer Smith as a Canadian. As an Indigenous person, she says she's mortified.
I think about all the times that my kids just run out and play in the sprinkler and I don't have to worry about it, and know that the kids of Grassy Narrows can't do that.
This is a problem that's been going on since the 1960s, and the people marching here say it's well past time for governments to act.
It's a message demonstrators paused to deliver with a round dance outside a federal Indigenous Services office. Then on to Queen's Park to be heard by the provincial government.
The way the governments treat First Nations is very unacceptable. This is not right. We should not be here in 2024.
Today, the federal and provincial governments acknowledge the pain Grassy Narrows continues to experience. They commit to help to clean up the contamination, but there's no date for when the suffering may stop. Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
Thunder Bay Fire Rescue spent hours yesterday dealing with an emergency at the Richardson grain elevator. Firefighters battled smoke and high temperatures around some machinery inside. There were fears of a dust explosion, which is a serious concern in grain facilities. Fortunately, crews were able to bring the situation under control after several hours, despite challenges posed by the hot, humid weather.
Deer Lake First Nation held a celebration this week to mark its connection to the provincial power grid.
The community is the 11th First Nation to be energized through the Watay Power Project. Justin Hardy flew to the community for the celebration and brings us the story.
The Watay-Nikanaya Power Transmission System is a $1.9 billion project. It's been in the works for over a decade with the goal of connecting 17 remote First Nations to clean, reliable energy. The line has been built and only a few communities are left waiting for full connection. Deer Lake was energized this April and Chief Leonard Mamakisik says that means the community is a lot more free to expand.
Well, it's pretty exciting. With lifting the restrictions. In the past, we weren't able to hook up all the homes in the construction projects we had, so now we have no limits, so it's pretty good. I think it's more reliable. I think it's more of a consistency, make sure there's no power outages and stuff like that, yeah.
The construction part of this project is complete, and we're near the end of the line here. We've been at this only for 17 years with Wataynikaneyap, and for our First Nations, talking about energy as a regional priority, it's been well over 33 years.
Anishinaabe Nation Grand Chief Alvin Fiddler made the trip up north to attend the celebration. During his speech, he mentioned growing up in his home community of Muskrat Dam without any power. He says the Wataynikaneyap power transmission system is crucial as First Nation communities continue to grow.
Deer Lake, for example, is one of the fastest growing communities in the Nan Territory. They have up to 1,200 people now that live here in the community. It's so important that we have clean, reliable power to help sustain the growth and to build more homes and to keep developing the infrastructure that's so needed to ensure quality of life for our people.
All Wataynikaneyap power assets are energized with 4 communities awaiting grid connection. Deer Lake will continue to be served by Hydro One remote communities for the local distribution of electricity. Justin Hardy, TBT News.
A local lobbying group held its first full moon mass bicycle ride in Thunder Bay last night in an effort to make the city safer for cyclists and pedestrians. The group of cycling advocates called Just Bike Thunder Bay is asking City Council to improve and add on to the existing infrastructure. That includes better bike lanes and construction of the Vickers and Carrick pedestrian bridge that's been on hold for years. The group ride was an easy loop around the city. Organizer Ken Shields says the group wants council to focus more on the active transportation master plan. There will be more rides every time there's a full moon. Shields says they're looking for more people to join them as well.
They do them in many other cities, and it's kind of beautiful because full moon, everybody knows when it is, and it kind of changes every month. So today it's on a Tuesday, next month it might be Wednesday or whatever. And we're going to do a series of them at least until February. And so the winter bikers get a chance to show off their skills on the roads. And we'll be doing that right in time for the budget season for 2025.
Well, beautiful day, and I saw this in events happening in Thunder Bay. I see we're starting to pick up a big crowd, and I think this is the first time I've heard about it. So I hope more people hear about this and join us.
The next full moon ride will be on October 17th.
For the third day in a row, Thunder Bay could surpass a temperature record. The ongoing heat wave is causing concern at local high schools and elementary schools, which don't have air conditioning. There have been reports of high school students leaving classes early and being picked up by parents in order to escape the hot conditions. But officials with the Lakehead and Catholic school boards insist they haven't received any complaints or had students walk out. The two boards acknowledge their classrooms have been unusually warm this week and are looking forward to cooler weather in the forecast. But for now, they say they've been monitoring the situation in all of the schools and are taking measures to ensure a safe and comfortable environment by maximizing ventilation systems, ensuring hydration, and making use of cooler spaces within their buildings.
Yeah, at risk that we may not feel this way in a couple of months as we turn to the weather. Fiona, some people may be saying this is a little bit too much of a good thing right now.
Well, I actually remember a couple of times in high school at the end of the year, end of June, finding that we had a few days where the classrooms were too hot. Don't remember seeing this ever in September. We had a high of 30 and a humidex of 35. Now, the only reason why we can't say this is a record